Achieng met Mbwana in the busy streets of Kisangani. He had nothing but an old guitar and a dream to become a musician. Most people laughed at him, but not Achieng. She saw something in him, something raw, real, and full of hope. Even though she didn't have much herself, she shared whatever she could. When he had no food, she cooked. When he was tired, she listened. When he doubted himself, she reminded him of his talent. They would sit under the stars, talking about the future, dreaming of the day his songs would be heard across Africa. She worked extra shifts, sold her clothes, and skipped meals just to buy him studio time. Her love was deep, quiet, and full of sacrifice. People warned her to be careful, but she only smiled. She believed in him more than he believed in himself. Through sickness, unpaid rent, and empty nights, she stayed. She became his biggest cheerleader, the reason he kept going. Mbwana would hold her hand and say, "One day, I'll make you proud." And she believed him. In the world's eyes, they were just a poor couple with no future. But to Achieng, they were building something powerful, something worth every struggle. She dreamed of the day he would shine, and she would be right there, smiling beside him. What she didn't know was that sometimes, love builds wings for someone else to fly, and forgets the hands that made them. Achieng had big dreams of her own. She wanted to go to university, become a teacher, maybe even open a small school in her village one day. But all those dreams slowly faded when she chose to stand beside Mbwana. He had talent, yes, but talent needed help. And Achieng became that help. Every time she got a little money, she didn't spend it on herself. She bought him guitar strings, studio time, clothes for performances. When she got sick from working long hours and skipping meals, she didn't tell him. She smiled and said, "I'm okay." Her own dreams were like books she closed and put away, promising to read them later. But later never came. She worked 2 jobs, barely slept, and often went to bed hungry. Also, Mbwana could chase his music. She believed in him so much it hurt. She missed job interviews, turned down scholarships, and stopped going to church, just so she could be at his rehearsals, carry his equipment, or talk to producers who didn't even care she was there. People started whispering. They said she was wasting her life on a boy who might never make it. But Achieng didn't care. She believed that one day, he'd remember everything she gave. Her health got worse. She began coughing at night, losing weight, and feeling tired all the time. Still, she pushed through. She told herself it would all be worth it when he finally made it. She pictured herself clapping in the front row, tears in her eyes watching him shine. That picture kept her going. She forgot her own needs, her own dreams, and even her own name at times, because all she wanted was to see Mbwana succeed. She thought love was about giving everything, even if it meant losing yourself. And so she gave, quietly, fully, without expecting anything in return. Achieng believed she was building a future for both of them. But what she didn't know was that sometimes the more you give, the more invisible you become. And sometimes when someone reaches the top, they forget who pushed them up. Mbwana's big break came suddenly. One of his songs went viral on the radio, and within weeks he was on TV, performing at big events and getting invited to Nairobi. Everything changed fast. Cameras followed him. Fans screamed his name, and money started flowing in. Achieng was so happy for him. She clapped for him alone in their small room, tears in her eyes. She tried to call him to say how proud she was, but he didn't pick up. She sent messages. No reply. She thought maybe he was just busy. But days turned into weeks, and her calls were still ignored. Then she saw it. A photo of Mbwana on Instagram, smiling, wearing designer clothes, his arm around a woman. Her name was Malaika, a rich Nairobi socialite known for dating celebrities. Achieng stared at the screen, not believing what she saw. Mbwana had not only forgotten her, he had replaced her. She refreshed the page again and again, hoping it was a mistake. But there they were, smiling at fancy parties, laughing in expensive hotels, kissing on red carpets. Her chest hurt, not just from heartbreak, but from shock. This was the same man she had slept on the floor with, shared ugali with when they had nothing, and held at night when he cried from rejection. And now he couldn't even text her back. Achieng felt like a ghost watching someone else's life. The man she had given everything to had erased her from his story. In interviews, Mbwana said nothing about his past. Nothing about the girl who believed in him when no one else did. She sat in silence for hours, staring at the screen. Her hands were shaking, her heart breaking in slow motion. The man she had loved was now a stranger in designer shoes. And the worst part? He didn't even look back. Not once. Achieng tried to stay strong. She told herself maybe Mbwana was just caught up in the spotlight. Maybe he'd remember her soon. But deep down she was scared. One evening, she opened her phone and scrolled through his new interview clip that was trending online. A radio host had asked him, "So, was there ever someone special before all this fame?" Mbwana laughed and shook his head. "No one serious," he said. "Music was always my only love." Achieng stopped breathing for a moment. Her ears rang. She replayed the clip, hoping she heard it wrong. But no, he had said it clearly. No one serious. As if she had been nothing. As if all those nights she stayed up helping him write lyrics, all the food she skipped, the dreams she buried for him. None of it mattered. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the comments. People praised him. Some even tagged Malika, calling them the perfect couple. Not one mention of her. Not even a shadow of their story remained. Mbwana had deleted every old photo. Every memory. It was like she had never existed. Achieng sat on the edge of her bed, feeling like the whole world was spinning without her. The memories rushed in, Mbwana crying in her arms after a failed gig, laughing with her under the stars, holding her hand and saying, "One day, I'll take you far from here." And now he was far, all right, but without her. She cried quietly, not just because he forgot her, but because he had chosen to erase her. Her love, her sacrifice, her pain. It was all denied with one short sentence. She felt small, invisible, like a ghost who had given her life for someone who no longer saw her. That night, Achieng didn't sleep. Her heart felt heavy, cracked open by betrayal. But somewhere deep inside, something began to shift. The pain was real, but it was also waking something inside her. Something that refused to stay silent. Something that was ready to speak. After seeing Mbwana deny her like she was never part of his story, Achieng disappeared. She stopped posting, stopped texting, stopped showing up. Even her close friends didn't hear from her. She moved away from Kisangani, far from the noise, far from memories that hurt too much. In a small quiet town where no one knew her name, she found a tiny room to rent. No mirror, no decorations, just a table, a chair, and silence. She didn't speak much to anyone. Her days were spent walking by herself, thinking about everything she had been through. The love, the pain, the lies, the silence. At night, she would sit by the window with a notebook and a pen. Then one night she just began to write. The words came out like tears. Fast, messy, and full of truth. She wrote about the Mbwana no one knew. The one who cried when he was broke. The one who promised her the world. The one who used her strength to build his own future. Then walked away like she was a stranger. She wrote about the hunger, the sacrifice, and the nights she almost gave up. Page after page, she poured out her heart, not to hurt him, but to finally speak for herself. She didn't tell anyone what she was doing. It was her secret world, her way of healing. Slowly, writing became her therapy. Her pain started to feel lighter as she turned it into words. She stopped crying every day. She started sleeping again. Months passed. The notebook became a manuscript. The manuscript became a story. And the story became a book. She titled it The Girl He Forgot. She still didn't think anyone would read it. But she had written it for herself, to remember, to let go, to be free. Achieng had once vanished to hide her heartbreak. But now she was returning with something powerful. A voice. A truth. A story the world was about to hear. Achieng didn't expect much when she sent her book to a small local publisher. She just wanted to share her story and maybe help someone who had felt the same kind of pain. But something surprising happened. The publisher read the first few pages and couldn't stop. They called her the next day and said, "This is powerful. People need to hear this." A few weeks later, the book was printed, and within days it caught fire. People across Kenya started sharing quotes from the pages. The title The Girl He Forgot was trending online. Everyone wanted to know who the girl was. The writing was raw, honest, and full of emotion. She didn't use Mbwana's full name, but the details were clear, too clear to hide. People connected the dots. They remembered his early interviews, his old photos, and the stories he once told. And now this book showed a different side. A side the cameras never saw. Readers were shocked. They had no idea Mbwana's success had been built on someone else's sacrifice. Page by page, Achieng exposed how she gave everything for his dream. How she faded into the background while he shined. How he walked away without a word, without even a thank you. The world had seen him as a star, but through her eyes, he looked like a user. Bookstores sold out in days. Online platforms crashed from the demand. People cried reading her words. Women especially sent her messages saying, "You told my story." Talk shows, bloggers, and journalists all wanted to speak with her. But Achieng stayed silent for a while. She let the book speak. And it did. Loudly. Mbwana tried to ignore it at first. But the pressure grew. Sponsors started backing away. Fans began questioning him. Interviews were cancelled. And everywhere he turned, he saw her name. Achieng, once invisible, had become the voice of thousands. Her pain had turned into power. And her story, once buried in silence, was now shaking the entire country. Mbwana was invited to a big cultural event in Nairobi, a night filled with celebrities, music, and media. He wore his best suit, thinking it was just another red carpet moment to boost his fading image. The whispers about Achieng's book were everywhere, but he hadn't read it. He told himself it was just noise. He believed people would soon forget and move on. As he entered the grand hall, cameras flashed, music played, and he smiled like nothing was wrong. He sat near the front, next to other famous names, pretending to be calm. The stage lights dimmed, and the host walked up to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host said with a proud smile. "Tonight, our keynote speaker is a woman whose story has touched hearts across Africa. Please welcome, Achieng." Mbwana froze. The room clapped loudly as Achieng walked onto the stage. Wearing a simple dress, her natural beauty shining brighter than ever. She looked strong, peaceful, unshaken. Mbwana's heart dropped. He hadn't seen her in over a year. Achieng took a deep breath and began to speak. Her voice was calm but firm. She didn't attack anyone by name, but everyone in the room knew who she was talking about. She spoke about love, trust, dreams, betrayal, and how women are often left behind after helping others rise. Her words hit like fire, soft but powerful, painful but healing. People stood up, clapping and cheering. Phones recorded every second. Her speech went viral that very night. Mbwana sat frozen, unable to move. For the first time he wasn't the star. The spotlight had shifted. And this time it wasn't his show. Achieng didn't even look at him once. She had already moved on. She wasn't there to get revenge. She was there to rise. And rise she did. Achieng's speech spread like wildfire. Within hours, clips of her words were all over social media. People everywhere were sharing, reposting, and tagging each other. Her calm voice, her strong message, and her quiet power touched something deep in people's hearts. It wasn't just a story about heartbreak anymore. It had become a mirror for many others. Women from all over Africa started writing their own stories online, using hashtags like #TheGirlHeForgot, #IamAchieng, and #SilentSacrifices. They spoke of love they gave, dreams they let go, and pain they carried in silence. From Nairobi to Lagos, Kampala to Accra, voices began to rise. It wasn't about hating men. It was about remembering women who give their all and are left behind without a word. Achieng's story reminded people that behind many powerful men, there is often a woman whose name is forgotten. News stations played her speech on repeat. Schools invited her to talk. Universities studied her book. Young girls began saying, "One day I want to be like Achieng." But the most powerful part? Women who had lost themselves in love found their voices again. They stopped apologizing for their pain. They stopped hiding their stories. Marches were held. Panels were formed. Songs were written. Achieng became more than an author. She became a symbol of resilience. A quiet storm that showed you don't need to scream to be heard. Even men started joining the conversation. Some apologized publicly to women they had hurt. Others started support groups wanting to unlearn the patterns of using and leaving. It was change, real, deep, and honest. Achieng didn't plan any of this. She only spoke her truth. But her truth had opened a door for thousands of others. She lit a small flame, and the world turned it into a fire of healing, strength, and awakening. After Achieng's speech went viral and her book continued to sell out across Africa, things began to fall apart for Mbwana. At first, he tried to act like nothing was wrong. He posted photos on Instagram, smiled in interviews, and pretended the storm hadn't touched him. But it had. Deeply. His fans began to question everything. Is this the man who broke her heart? Did he really forget the girl who gave him everything? People no longer clapped when he entered the room. They stared, quietly, judging. His sponsors noticed too. One by one, they started pulling out. We can't be part of this image, they said. Brands that once called him every day stopped picking up his calls. His team shrank. Shows were cancelled. People whispered behind his back. Mbwana tried to defend himself, but his words felt empty. He had no truth to stand on. Then came the final blow. Malaika, the Nairobi socialite who once proudly stood beside him at every event, stopped appearing. No more pictures, no more sweet captions. Rumors spread fast. People said she had left him. And it was true. Malaika didn't want her name tied to the mess. She posted a short message online. I wish him healing, but I'm choosing peace. And just like that, she was gone. Mbwana was left alone. The fame, the lights, the fake smiles, none of it could cover what he had lost. The music didn't sound the same anymore. The rooms were quieter. The messages fewer. He had everything, but he didn't protect the one person who helped him rise. Now he was watching it all fall apart, piece by piece. The world didn't hate him, but they didn't trust him anymore. And in fame, that's enough to end everything. After everything, her pain, her silence, her truth, Achieng didn't stop. She knew her story had touched many, but she wanted to do more. So quietly, she launched a nonprofit to help young women who had been forgotten just like her. Girls who had given too much, stayed too long, or lost their voices in someone else's dream. She called it Silent No More. It offered counseling, scholarships, and writing workshops to help them heal and find themselves again. While her team built the foundation, something unexpected happened. One morning, Achieng posted a photo of a handwritten letter on her social media. It was from Mbwana. He had finally apologized. Not just with words but with honesty. He admitted to being selfish, blind, and weak. He said, I owe you the truth. I hurt the one person who truly believed in me. Achieng didn't clap back. She simply posted the letter with a caption. Healing begins with truth. The internet exploded again, but this time with respect. People saw her grace. She wasn't bitter. She wasn't chasing revenge. She was rising gently but powerfully. News outlets called her a national treasure. Schools invited her. Governments asked her to speak. Her face appeared on murals, magazines, and even classroom walls. She had become more than a voice. She had become a symbol of strength, dignity, and silent courage. Achieng, the girl who once cried alone, had become a light for thousands. Not by shouting but by standing tall in her truth.